Um, the rear facade um, has been stuccoed over or has a concrete facing on it. It's not really stucco. Fire escape has a small little porch cover and is on a block that has a few additions, including a two-story addition 2 houses away on the corner. Actually, I'll come back to this one because I think it's probably not as useful. But this is our house. This is the 2-story addition. We have a yard. We are excavating below the yard, but when we are completed, the yard will be at the same level as the yards around us. I always feel like this diagram shows everything the best, and it describes a 2-story rear addition. That's not too deep. We're having a large skylight on this upper floor. This is an elevator bulkhead. The elevator is not going to the roof, but this is the bulkhead sticking up out of it. This is a pretty shallow roof line. And we're converting this from a 4-family to a 1-family. And instead of doing a bulkhead at the roof, we have carved out this section of the roof, which is a non-visible rooftop terrace at the level of that existing 4th floor. And we're doing a stair, which will be to a roof deck above. You'll see that in a second. Straight elevation shows some restoration work that we're doing on the facade, bringing back a lot of the details. This will be a passive house. So these are simulated double hungs with a meeting rail and all the details that will match a typical wood double hung window. Restoring a lot of the stoop work, a lot of the iron work. Some of the iron work that we're doing is matching a neighboring building to some degree, doing some work at the front yard, bluestone, some steps down to the front areaway. Right now, it's just kind of broken up concrete. And the rear facade, which we've got a couple of images of, you can see here, for the most part, keeping the upper floors intact. The middle window is going to become a door. The 2-story addition is here. It looks like 1 story because of the way we've designed it. This is 1 space. You've got a railing here. And you can see the rear yard dig out here. You won't really be able to see this from a public way, but it exists. I don't think these sections are as helpful as the drawings that are upcoming. I'll describe this one briefly though, if you don't mind. This is the roof next door. The roof next door, if you remember, I told you we were creating a depressed area with a stair up. What you'll see in some of the visibility diagrams is the upper portion of this rail is visible. The upper portion of the rail of the stair going to that upper roof deck is visible. If we had done a bulkhead, the whole bulkhead would have been visible. So we feel like it was a better solution. Also allowed us to put our mechanicals and setup up here, which would have been visible. We're putting them below the stair because it's a passive house. It doesn't really need a lot of mechanicals. We're able to kind of tuck them in. This is a better view or a rendering of what that addition looks like. Again, the 2-story addition on the corner, which you'll see in a second, comes out a lot further. We have a few steps to go out into the yard. This glass looks down into the cellar, keeping that roof line, keeping the corbelling, keeping all the historic fabric there. It should be noted, we are assuming and hoping that we can remove that concrete coating and expose the brick that was once there and repoint it. One of the things that we'll be doing before public hearing is just doing a test area of this. Otherwise, we'll restucco it, but it would be our preference to bring it back to the brick that it once was. This is an aerial view, kind of better describing what I've talked about a few times now, which is that upper roof deck. You can see a little bit of that elevator bulkhead right here. This is the back of the house. That's the front of the house. So at the back of the house, we have a skylight that I described earlier. The top of the bulkhead of the elevator. We're keeping, oops, I went forward. We're keeping with a 7-foot cab, not an 8-foot cab. So we've brought that down as much as we can, but a little piece of that is visible. And again, a little piece of this rail is visible, or a bit of that rail is visible from the back. You get to see what that looks like here. I'm actually going to show it to you on this. We have some neighboring chimneys, both front and back. We're raising the back ones a bit higher than the front because they're next to a roof deck, and we want to make sure that they're 6 feet higher. We're only raising these as much as we need to. You'll see that in a second. The mock-up, which is still on site, is a little difficult to kind of read what's what. We've drawn in this yellow line. That is the floor of the roof deck. We've drawn in what would be the stair rail because it's hard to see. I mean, it's built in 2x4s, but it's hard to see. And then you can see the chimney extensions on both sides. When you look at it from the street, it's hard to see, but you can kind of see the scale of the limb that's right here on the tree. That's that same limb. Zoomed in, you can see the chimney extension. You can see the top portion of that roof deck on the side. Zoomed in even more, and off to the side, that's that same chimney extension and that same top roof deck rail. Right here and right here would be the top of the stair going up. But as a reminder, if we had done a bulkhead, you'd see, I think, a lot more than what you're able to see here. From the other street, so I just showed you some views from here. Here's Clinton. Atlantic is this way. So you've got Pacific. And so I'm showing you kind of the worst views where, again, standing pretty far back, it's hard to see things, but we can zoom in. Zooming in, you can start to, again, see the chimney extension. Here you can see a bit more of the roof rail, especially when the tree doesn't have leaves on it. I think when the tree has leaves, you're not seeing anything. Thankfully, we were able to take this. When you can see it, you'll see, again, just that top portion of the rail. Same right there. From the back, here's that 2-story addition that's next to us. You can see that here labeled as 1B. Here's our 2-story addition. You will see our 2-story addition over kind of the wall that our neighbor, the house that's right here, 203, has a concrete block fence, which blocks a bit of the lower portion. So you'll see a bit of the rear addition from the street on this angle, and you can see a little bit more of that railing right there that I described earlier. Kind of the worst vantage point is when you get even further back, and you have to zoom in pretty heavily to get this, but you can start to see that top of that rail again. And just to show it to you all in plan, here is that depressed area. You come out, we carve this out. There was a roof above us. There's no longer a roof. There's doors that come out. You're able to go up a set of stairs. Air conditioning is now tucked in the stair, not on top of the roof. And then when you're on the roof deck, you come here, and it's just one clean roof deck with very typical fireman access. Coming through, you can start to see the same thing in section. We've got some skylights that are not visible here. Here's that rear skylight. Just some window details that I can go into in more detail if you'd like. There are some leaded glass windows in the top of these. They're not in great shape, but I think, you know, we can restore them, especially if they're not going to be functioning. These are on the front. They're definitely not original, but they were there when the tax photo was taken. We plan to reuse these on the inside of the house, right inside the vestibule. I don't think they're really good for exterior use. We'd have to restore them all. There are 6. I think 4 of them are definitely have the possibility of being restored, but 3 definitely can. So it kind of gives you a sense of what we might do. Detail of that door, which is a typical lift and slide. And the rest are like demolition drawings and so forth. So anyway, that's the presentation, unless you have questions if I missed anything.
Thank you, Michael. Before I call on the committee, is there anybody here from the community who wants to speak about this? I won't call on you yet if you're here. I just want to know if anybody's here. And Mike, did your team leaflet the area, or did the owner?
Yeah, we leafleted the area, and our owner has not only done that, but I believe he's contacted neighbors, or they've both contacted neighbors on both sides as well as behind us.
Okay. Questions? I think Jerry, was that, hold on a second now. Yeah, Jerry, go ahead.
Okay, can we go to the rear elevation, please?
Mhm.
Okay, that's fine. I notice on at the new deck, this is a question, because you have outside lights now at the basement level.
Jerry, we're losing you.
You have two at the parlor floor.
Jerry, can you hear me? You're freezing up. Jerry, maybe turn off your video. Jerry, can you hear me?
Okay.
Can you turn off your video and start again?
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.
Okay.
Maddie, no, you can't tell him anything.
You took your hand down. Do you not want to ask your question now? Or? I think you turned off your audio, not your video. Well, so Jerry, while you put, why don't you figure that out, and let's just go to Bob, and then I'll come back to you. Bob, you're muted.
I just wanted to see the block picture drawing and how close the school is behind you from Pacific Street. Yeah, that's all. Yeah. Yeah, so that's
Yeah,
and what's the building directly behind it? That's, I guess.
This is the gun club. I forgot that 162 Pacific, and it goes really deep. The whole building.
Yeah, how tall is that?
4 stories. It's your typical
4
townhouse.
stories?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's really going to block the view of the rest of the block to see anything you're doing.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah, that's
biggie.
right. That's what I thought, but I just wanted to make sure that's what that was, or how tall it was. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I have no problem with what you're doing mostly.
All right. Thanks, Bob. Remember, put your hand down. All right, Jerry, you ready?
I don't know, can you hear me?
Right now,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
I'll go back to that elevation.
Okay, I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what happened. Okay, as I was saying, the 2 lights you show where the sliding doors are on the parlor floor.
Mhm.
I just want to know, do you have any on the new deck?
It's a good point.
Because whereas the parlor floor, the new deck is at the level where some bedrooms are, and any lights would be somewhat obtrusive. You're not showing any in the drawing, so I'm just
Yeah, we probably,
curious.
yeah, I think it's unrealistic that we wouldn't. So we'll probably have a light here, and I'll make sure that gets added. Whatever light we put here or here will shine. Well, especially here, will only shine down. Especially on the upper floors, we have had to replace lights enough times to know to make them shine down. So it will not be a glass front light. I mean, maybe these would be, I have to think about this one, but they'll mostly shine down. This will definitely only shine down.
And
Or it'll probably get replaced very soon thereafter being installed.
realistic.
Mhm.
And on the on the floor where you're on the, I guess, second and third floor. I can't, it's still too small for me to read.
Mhm.
What are you doing with the windows and the lintels?
This is all just being restored. There's no change in the size of any of these windows. It's got that concrete facing on it. We're pretty positive that as we remove that, I mean, we've done this a lot in the neighborhood, and we're often able to just keep that brick and repoint. And when we do that, sometimes we've got to replace in kind the lintel and the sill, but that's all we'd be doing. Whatever we've got there, if it's bluestone, it's bluestone. If it's brownstone, we'll have to see what it is. But we'd like to restore it completely. It'd be our first choice because it doesn't need to be maintained over time. Our last choice would be to have the wall be in such poor shape that we've got to keep the stucco on. Only because I
Okay.
feel like it's a temporary solution.
All right, thank you. That's it for right now.
Thanks, Jerry. Glenn?
Yes, I wanted to see the picture of the front of the house. And if you could show the neighboring houses.
Ooh, I think I've got to get in photos.
I looked through the plans and just want to say this is a very ambitious reconstruction and an admirable restoration of the front of the house. So I'm all for that. But I'm concerned that some of that railing and stair shows. And I'd hope it would be possible to avoid that.
This railing or the upper
let
one?
me finish. Since there's so much house, perhaps you could just push it back 3 feet. That's probably all it would take. And you would just have to reduce the size of the skylight in the back. I'm sure there's more to it than that, but I just wanted to put that out there.
The upper
That
one.
you've got such a beautiful restoration and it's a beautiful block. If you could just avoid showing any of that, railing up top would be great.
Where are you talking about, Glenn?
Yeah, I'm going to go to that now if you don't mind, guys. It's I'm going to go to the aerial view because I think it describes it the best. Thanks. There you go. It's this rail right here, and this stair. So this rail's already pushed back quite a bit. It's not sitting at the front of this, and we did that so that basically we're trying to keep it to about 12 inches, and we already pushed this back a bit to kind of achieve what we've got now. We'd have to move it back pretty significantly. Another. Right now this is I forgot the dimension, Maggie and Mary, you could tell me, but it would get really significantly smaller, almost to the point where I might even have a little bit of the stair to below is right in that spot right there.
I thought that might be a concern. I thought,
Yeah.
3 feet would, if not eliminate it, it would reduce it to the point where it wouldn't matter at all to me.
Yeah,
Right.
our first choice by a lot would not be to come to anybody with a visible roof deck. So yeah, I fully understand the issue.
I don't want to get too in the weeds, but we have pushed that stair as far towards the back of the house as possible right now, because Michael, you're right, it's a head height issue for the interior stair that's coming up basically below that.
Yeah, the stair lands like right there. Ooh, sorry. Keep pressing buttons. But yeah, the interior stair comes up right there. But yeah, but I understand the question completely. And then, to be noted, you can only see them when you're pretty far away. When I go to, I mean, that is the real view.
Yeah, I only mention it because it's almost perfect.
I hear you. Thanks. I appreciate that. I mean, I think this is zoomed in, like I forgot how many magnifications, but like a lot.
Glenn, do you have any other questions?
No, I don't.
All right, thank you. Joanna?
Hi, really excited about the passive house application in the neighborhood. I hope more and more get
You're not in the
done.
neighborhood, so.
What's that? Oh, sorry. I thought I heard something. I also concerned about some of the visibility of the chimneys are what are bothering me. I'm wondering, I know that we want to avoid smoking out the roof deck, but I'm thinking about usage, and the times when smoke might be coming out of the chimney are times you're probably not likely to be on the roof because it's cold. So just to think about if there can be some trade-off there, bringing it down even a couple feet.
Mhm.
And the stained glass windows, I'm curious about if they're in any of the neighboring houses,
Mhm.
and they're unique to this property. Feeling like because they do date back to the tax photo and definitely past the designation of the neighborhood, that maybe the ones that can be salvaged should be, but I wasn't clear on how many that would be, and if it would lead to an uneven application on the front.
Mhm.
But just something to think about. I like them too.
So I'm going to interject here because I was going to say this separately, but there was an email from me through Ty back to Mike's office about the chimneys. I don't think they're actually being extended high enough as per the code. I'm sure Mike and his team have an opinion about that, but I have the same concerns as you do, Joanna. I think they have to be 3 feet higher than the railings, and they need to be high enough not to create a noxious situation for anybody who's on the terrace. So Mike, if you want to respond to that and the other stuff that Joanna asked, that'd be fine.
Yeah, one thing that we can consider that might make this, the situation a little better, if you can see my green bad drawings. Sometimes we're extending them but without such mass, and we can have those be kind of black extension flue pipes with a cap, so that it's not such a big brick mass coming up. I think there's something we could do to kind of detail that in a way where it doesn't feel so massive. I do think the code's going to tell us what we have to do with that. So I think it's going to be on us to detail that in a way that doesn't feel, I think, as heavy as you're describing it as well. And there's 2 flue pipes, so I think we could do
Are
that.
you answering Joanna?
Oh, both, I think.
All
Sorry.
right. My issue is that not the one that you're showing there, but the other ones that aren't coming up. Because you're raising some of them above 3 feet above and others you're not, right?
No, so
Maybe if you go to the aerial view,
yeah, I gotta get out of this.
it has to be just the active ones. not
Yeah.
the-
Actually,
And my concern there is that it increases the visibility of the chimneys, perhaps.
yeah,
Not-
yeah.
The-
Go ahead, Maggie.
The
you can
mock-up
describe it.
photo on the previous page might actually
Perfect.
show a little better. So the active flues that are adjacent to the roof deck, kind of at the middle here, there's 2 side by side. Those are being extended above the roof railing, and at the front, where they're about 8 feet away from the roof deck, we have met with the plan examiner at DOB, and the code that was brought up is 3'6" above structure, and the examiner was considering the surface of the roof deck as the structure.
Yeah, I know you said that in your email. I disagree with that. Railings are not structure. They don't support anything. And again, you have people standing there, but I've said my piece on that, so.
Well, but let's just keep going just a little bit more, just because it'd be nice to answer for everyone, or even for us. I do wonder. I'm drawing them taller on purpose, even if they had to be taller. Whether the scale of something that's 8 or 10 inches round and black versus 4 feet in brick helps the conversation just a little bit. And I think we can detail that. But we've done it before. They're structural. They're double wall, and I do wonder whether we should detail them in a way that, especially on the front flues, that it feels a little less oppressive. And we could do that.
Okay.
Yeah, just to continue the conversation a bit, I don't want to deprive the homeowners of any of their nice amenities, but neither of these things are essentials. Like, it would be possible to close up that line if there was no way to mitigate the visibility of it in terms of the fireplaces inside. And same with the roof deck. There's lots of outdoor space on this property. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not going to be the big meanie and say you shouldn't have everything you dream of, but maybe there's some way to mitigate the visual impact.
I think for us, I'll look at the flue I described and kind of see if we can lessen the weight of that.
All right. Joanna, any more questions?
Just more info on the stained glass windows.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't answer that question. So honestly, they're in really bad shape. But we work with Sunburst Studios. I was blanking on them, right? But they're in Brooklyn, and they're great. We're pretty positive that 3 of them can be restored. They should not be on a front window. I think they may have at one point been on the parlor. They're already gone there. I think we'd only get 3 of them. We've been through this on some of the front windows before, and sometimes we've installed them inside the glass. But in this case, I think we're at best going to get 3 of it. We might get the 4th, but what we plan to do is have them not leave the property, which is what we've done before, especially on landmark projects. And we just like doing it. It's nice to keep what was there, and then we plan to reuse it in the vestibule. And we just do it on all of our projects. We like to reuse stuff, but they've been exposed for a long time, and I think not maintained for a long time.
Okay, Joanna, thank you. Maddie?
Yeah, I just had a question about the extension. Are you having windows on the sides?
No,
That's
it's
good.
yeah, totally brick. Mhm.
Okay. That's it, Maddie? That was your question? Yeah, okay. Daniel, you had your hand up at one point, are you not?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got my computer died, and I had to rejoin by phone. I don't have any questions. But I am I'm concerned about the visibility of this.
Okay. Anybody else? Again, anybody else in the community here?
David, we do have a hand raised on the attendee side, but there's a couple more committee members too with hands up.
Okay, well, let me do the committee members first. Glenn, you're at the top of my screen, so you can go first.
Sure. This is a quickie. It just coming back to what Daniel just said about the visibility. It doesn't concern me in the back as much as in the front. And I'm just thinking, as Joanna said, you've got plenty of outdoor space, and this reconstruction is like really over the top. There's everything in here. It's going to be a palace. You could really lose that upper deck, in which case you could lose the staircase, and then you don't have a visibility problem, in my opinion. I'm not an architect, don't know what's involved in doing that, but you get rid of that, you don't have the visibility problem, which would cause me to vote against this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just to be clear with everyone, we're converting from a 4-family down to a 1-family, and we would be required to do a bulkhead if we were not doing the stair, or another way to do it. We've actually done this before in landmark projects because nobody wants to see the bulkhead, but you need to do a bulkhead to your uppermost level, and we would need to do a roof rail at a minimum. Maybe it wouldn't be so slatted as what we've got right now, but at a minimum there would be a roof rail at 3'6" around this with if you've seen them with the 2 horizontals below them, and there would be a bulkhead. So the visibility of that rail would not change, and the bulkhead would be much bigger than what we're showing. So I think the alternative to what we would be doing, I mean, I guess you could always say, well, then don't convert it to a 1-family, but the way that the new code all reads is you have to have that bulkhead. Is one of the things that our office struggles with a lot.
Yeah, I'm thinking you could still have the front deck and you have the roof deck. You just wouldn't have the upper deck.
No, so what I'm saying is we would have to do a bulkhead on the upper deck. This is our this is our uppermost floor, and so your roof, you would need a bulkhead for fire access.
Okay, so no, I mean, I think we get it.
Yeah, they're not counting the front area. Just they want fire access to this as well.
Sure. Jerry?
Just a follow-up question on the chimneys. You said you would extend them, but maybe do, I assume you either mean a clay or metal extension going up painted black. What are these flues for? Are they boilers, fireplaces?
Yeah, so the neighboring house has
Ah,
a couple of, they've got a hot water heater, at least one, and on the front, and a boiler. And then they've got what looks like at least what could be 2 active flues. We have to assume that they might make them active at some point. And we have no gas heating in this house. It's all electric because it's a passive house. Actually, we
Right.
probably won't need to heat it at all. But we do have a fireplace in the parlor floor, which has 1 flue.
okay. Is it possible that the metal or clay pipes, however you put it up there, could be put on an angle which would make them less visible? Tilting them, do they have to go straight up the extensions?
You know, I hear you. Yeah, we've done that in the past. I think that would
I mean, I've
be-
seen it on other chimneys,
Yeah,
and I'm just wondering that would take some of the visibility from the street away,
yeah.
but that's just thought.
It also might call out the fact that they're
I
angled. but-
Yeah,
I
I'm
understand.
I'm not a big fan of the angle, but I'll definitely think about it. Sorry, it's the architect in me. So,
I imagine
that
if
would-
the-
We'll
if
call
they
it
were
the-
silver or gray, it might blend in with the sky and be less visible. That's a thought.
Oh, you know, it's funny, Maggie and Mary, you can totally correct me when I do these things. I didn't realize they already have them drawn in the section as the individual elements. So the bulkhead, I'm sorry, the mock-up has them as boxy.
It's a little
Um,
hard to mock up cylinders, so.
Yeah, but
it's- yeah.
Maggie and Mary have already drawn them as cylinders, which will be less oppressive than the. Sorry if I present it wrong. You guys can totally call me out.
Well,
Um,
just
that's-
to, sorry, just to clarify though, my point, Mike, and I'm only saying this for the committee's benefit, is that those 2 that you're circling, since they're within 10 feet of the railing, should extend 3 feet above the railing, like the ones up the 3 on the left do. So that makes
Ah.
it more visible.
David, I was just about to say that.
Now, we can have I just think that's how the code reads.
Mhm.
Yeah. I
And
would think it'd have to
I
go
will
up.
say, I think it is up to the architect to interpret the code because the DOB examiners are somewhat, they're ultimately, they don't own the problem.
Mhm.
And again, back to Joanna's question, if someone's standing on that deck and those are exhausting, noxious fumes or something, that could be an unpleasant circumstance. But anyway, that's all I want to say about it, but it's. I don't have a problem with it. I just want people to know that they may be more visible. That's all.
I hear you.
Are there any other questions? I guess, Ty, we have a question from an attendee.
Yeah, Joshua Klempner, I'm going to bring you over to the panel right now. You have your hand raised, so I'm assuming you have a question on this particular application. If you don't, you can say so. But you should be able to unmute yourself now.
And Joshua, as you come on, just tell us a little bit who you are and your interest in the project. Your neighbor, interested in historic preservation.
Sure thing. Hey, hi, everybody. I'm 162 Pacific Street, AKA the Gun Club. Hello, everybody. I just had a simple set of questions. This whole thing's very new. I'm just learning about everything now. Daniel, by the way, has been helping me from the neighborhood. I don't know his address. And thank you. Hey, so I just want to confirm, and I hopefully we'll get to look at some better drawings and things like that. The distance in the cellar to cellar, what that distance would be, and maybe even depth. Let me write that down if you don't mind.
Yeah, we can get into it. We're on the right drawing for it. So as I mentioned, we are excavating in the yard. When we're done, our yard will be a bluestone patio, and be at the same level of everybody else's yards. Landmarks typically asks us to keep that yard 5 feet away, and as they put it, to the center of the earth, so that roots and other things can kind of get through that, and there's no barricade. And then Joshua, what I think Daniel's probably already talked to you about, and I think our owners have talked to him about, is in order for us to do that, we'd be underpinning a portion of your building. And I think my client has already been in touch with you guys to discuss this. And
Okay, great. So I'm just taking this back right now to my guys. By the way, my role is the president of the club, but
oh, great.
a holding company and all these other things. So it's really great to meet all you guys. And I am not an expert on this stuff. I'm going to bring it to my guys. So
and then Joshua, we separately, we could also have our engineer, our structural engineer who's done these with us, meet with you as well and do a Zoom like this and go. I mean, it would, especially be if you're the building owner behind us, we should go into a lot more detail with you.
Yeah, and you know what? We're probably going to have to get prepared for that as well. Thank you very much, by the way. I really appreciate that. Just give me a little bit to get my ducks in a row.
Of course.
We may actually get our own engineer. So
that'd be great. Engineers to
you don't
engineer
know
can
what we're
talk
talking
directly.
about. So thank you so much. So yeah, so my question was just around the 5 feet and the depth, because it's a cellar too, correct? The cellar is moving out.
Yeah. So the cellar is in this plan. It's going to go straight out and 5 feet to your property. And we can, once you, especially if you're hiring an engineer, we can have the two engineers talk directly to each other.
Of course, engineer talk. And what do you know what the depth is? The depth lined
So
up with ours?
Joshua, I'm sorry, just if I could step in here. So
thing.
this is a conversation that I think.
Sorry.
We can take it offline. Sure thing.
Well, yeah, it's an engineering question and it's a good question. If you have questions about the historical
I see.
project or anything,
I understand what you're saying.
we can certainly respond to that. But I think in terms of the engineering questions, it's best just to deal directly with Mike on that.
And so that's my question. That's a good question. This element of the job fits into a normally approved landmark, preservation situation. This kind of subterranean extension. It's going to be okay?
We.
I don't know.
They've come through us, and it doesn't really impact the. I mean, different people have different opinions, but it doesn't impact the visual characteristics of the building. It's something concealed from the public and mostly concealed from the neighbors once it's done. But you raised some good questions, and I think you ought to continue the conversation offline with Mike in his office and his engineers.
Good deal. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Any other questions from anybody? Attendees, committee? Daniel.
Yeah, I'm just, while we're on this page, I'm a little confused. Is the uppermost portion of this structure, is that existing structure or is that being added with the pitch?
Yeah, so you have your existing roof line, and we are cutting out a bit of that roof to create this open area. And we're going to basically put what we do on a lot of our passive houses is and what you can kind of see here, if you see a little bit of a different angle right there. So here, what we're doing is we put 4 inches of rigid insulation on the outside. And we do it on all houses, not just passive houses now, but we do, whenever we're re-roofing something, we do 4 inches of rigid insulation on the outside, a protection board, and then roof. This way, the hot summer sun never makes it into the house. It doesn't matter how much you insulate the bay. Once the heat gets into the structure, you're still dealing with it. So what you're seeing there is that angle right there is just in a landmark district. We don't like to have that rigid insulation be seen. So we pitch it down to 0 when it hits that rear corbelling, because we want that original dimension to remain. But as much as the roof as we can, we try to keep that 4 inches of rigid insulation.
Okay, I get it. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Daniel. Any other questions? Joanna?
Backyard question. I was just having trouble getting my head around the need for the stairs. I was just curious, like because you said the backyard's going to end up at the same level it always was. Are there stairs there currently? Just curious about that.
So right now, the first floor, well, I mean, actually, so right now your parlor floor is at this level. And there are stairs that go down into that yard now off a deck.
Okay.
Our garden floor is here. We're actually changing this level a little bit and creating, we're basically taking out a level. We're losing some floor area and actually creating a half level, just so that the parlor floor isn't so far above the yard. So instead of like what would have been like 7 or 8 steps down to the yard, right now we have 3 or 4 steps.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Joanna. Anybody else? Okay, anybody got a motion? Jerry?
I'll try. And please don't shoot me, guys. As far as to, the motion is to recommend to LPC conditional approval for 205 Clinton Street with the condition that they make the stairs, the deck railing, and the chimneys less visible from the street exposures.
I'll second.
And anybody else have anything to say?
Yes, in that case, I will vote for it.
As
Ariel?
will I, with those conditions.
Ariel, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, my question is about this, I'm always confused by this. So I think it should be accepted as it is. They're doing an amazing amount of work on the front to bring this building back. There's so much to be, I mean, compared to what there is now, this is a huge, huge improvement, and the amount of which you can see it from the street to me doesn't really is a reasonable trade-off. But I don't know, I mean, I'd vote for this. I would say yes to this amendment too, because it's my question is conditional mean if they don't do it, we don't support this? Because then I would have to vote against that.
Well, Ariel, you can make a friendly amendment to Jerry, I think, to delete the conditional.
Or aren't there ways to frame it that say we encourage them to look at this again and reduce what you can see, but not to say that if they don't, we don't support it? There's a language, it's just a language, and I don't know the proper way to frame that. I'm okay with saying they can look into it to try to reduce it, but I don't think we should say it's not worthy without it being reduced.
All right, well, before you answer that, Jerry, Alec, you have any comments?
My comment would be basically what Ariel's was. Actually, David, I had a question for you about this. Michael suggested that the visibility from the street issue might still rear its head because of a bulkhead alternative. And I can't make heads or tails of that because I don't have the adequate grounding. But what do you make of it?
Well, he's right. I mean, so what Michael, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the stair that goes up from the lower deck to the upper deck is an exterior stair. If it's an interior stair, it has to be covered by a roof, which is 7 or 8 feet higher.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
I mean, Michael, that's essentially it, right?
that's it. And we kind of play that game to a certain extent on a lot of landmark projects because it's our way of skirting it with what we know the DOB wants and what LPC wants. So if I would just annotate again really quickly, and I could do it without wasting too much time, if this were a bulkhead, not that we would ever do this in the front, but kind of like what David said, you'd have a roof over that bulkhead. And because it's not outside, we don't need that roof. We would typically, what would have happened is that bulkhead would have been here. And then I would have still had my roofer rail, and I would have still had my roofer rail. They let you keep it back a certain amount of feet from the front, but not in the back, but not too much. It's the thing that our office and a lot of offices are kind of constantly dealing with now with the new code. And it's so firemen can get access to the roof.
So folks, this is, I think, a reason why Ariel's suggestion about making this a kind of encouraging, like make efforts to try to reduce visibility, but not a condition is a sound one. And so I would, if a friendly amendment along those lines were to be accepted, I would gladly vote for the resolution.
I'm waiting to hear what the words are. That's all I'm saying.
Well, if I might interject here.
Hold on, Glenn.
Okay.
Glenn, we're going to go in turn here. Bob's next.
Was going to say the same thing that Alec and Ariel said, is that I would say we encourage them to try to get it a little smaller, but not as a conditional thing.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Deb?
Can I get some explanation? What you guys are saying is you're recommending approval of the, as presented, with a recommendation that they looked at reducing the visibility.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
I think that's what you're hearing, Jerry.
Okay.
Deb has her hand up. Deb?
Yeah, well, a few more people have already spoken and basically cleared it up. But I was going to say I didn't understand the gist of the amendment based on what Michael had said about the bulkhead and the fencing earlier in the presentation. So it seems to be that it is already reduced as much as it could possibly be reduced as per code. So I'm not quite sure where we're going with it.
Okay, thank you. Glenn?
The stair to the roof, the upper roof deck, doesn't have to be right over the stairs inside the house. It's possible to reduce the visibility in some way. All we're saying is try to do that if you can. I mean, our role is strictly encouragement. We're not voting against this. We're advising the LPC that we'd like to see them reduce it. That's it. It's not a requirement. It's just a suggestion. So I don't think we need the friendly amendment because our motion
There's no
is
amendment.
just a suggestion.
So Jerry, what I'm hearing is we're recommending approval with some suggested modifications to the visibility of the roof.
Yes, and I was about to say that. I was about to say I'm willing to change the motion.
Okay, so have I got that kind of close?
Yes, you have it very close.
All right. Deb, is your hand still up? Could you have another question or?
No, that's fine. I mean, if you're going to change the wording, that's fine.
Okay. Glenn, your hand's still up, but you're set. Okay, good. So any other conversation about this? So why don't we just see who's voting against this? Put your hand up if you're voting against this. Okay, Mark's voting against it. Mark, are you voting against it or are you commenting?
I'm voting against it as you instructed.
Okay. Daniel's voting against it. Sorry, I've got to scroll down here. Okay, is anybody abstaining? Okay, so I believe we have 16 people, 13. So I think it's 11-4 and 2 against. Or actually 12-4 because one other person showed up, I think. Okay. Thank you, Michael and team. Good luck with the project.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Have a good night, everyone. Been nice seeing everybody.
You as well, Mike. Okay, let me just make sure I have the right number of people here. Van, yeah, you came on. So let me just call, it's hard to read the Zooms. I'm just going to call out names I think are here from the committee. If you don't hear your name, just tell me. I have Ariel, Joanna, Maddie, Jerry, Bob, Daniel, Alec, Mark, Allison, Glenn, Deb, Pauline, and Van. Did I leave anybody out who's on the committee?
No, but you're taking a roll. I'm going to have to jump off in a few minutes.
Okay. That's fine. Okay, so next one. 305 President Street, my block. A certificate of appropriateness application for a new 2-story rear yard extension, but I believe it also includes some front yard work, if I'm not mistaken. Nicholas, are you the architect?
Yes, I'm the architect.
Okay, just a couple, have you presented to us before?
I did a couple years ago. Yeah, it's been a
All
while.
right, so I call on the people to question, for questions you answer. Once a motion's on the floor, we ask you don't speak anymore unless someone asks you a question during the discussion.
Sure.
Is there anybody from the community for 305 President Street who's attending tonight? If so, just make yourself known. Okay, so Nicholas, why don't you take it away?
All right. Okay, my name is Nicholas Brown. I'm the architect working with the owners of 305 President Street. I'm here to review a brownstone renovation with the rear addition. The project's located in Carroll Gardens Historic District. So there's 3 items that I'm here to review. The first is the rear addition. There's some work in the front areaway, and then a small accessory structure in the rear. So again, this is in the Carroll Gardens Historic District, which is defined by this red boundary, and then the project 305 President is highlighted in the black. This block is divided down the rear yards by the historic boundary. President Street side is within the historic district and Union Street is outside. The image on the right shows the 1940s tax photo. A big part of this project is the restoration of the front facade. The existing facade doesn't have any of the original details, so we're making a lot of effort to bring back all of the existing window profiles, restoring the cornice. The stoop and the railing all will be restored to its original detail. Existing context, this is the street view along President Street. Again, you can see the project location highlighted here. Again, the majority of the existing details are no longer existing, but our neighbors to the right, 305A, President Street, have done a great job of restoring their facade, and that's the similar direction, pretty much the exact direction we're doing, is bringing back all the old brownstone details, the cornice, and everything else, the railings. And then the image on the bottom is showing the view along Union Street. This is to illustrate that the work that's happening in the rear facade and rear yard are not visible anywhere along Union Street. And then the project location is highlighted here for reference. This is the block plan, the aerial view, to give more information about the rear facades along President Street. Project location highlighted here. As you can see, there are a variety of different additions along these rear facades, some 2-story, some single-story, 2-story partial width, decks and fire escapes all collage along this rear facade. And then these are just more detailed aerial views that kind of track along the rear elevations. The bottom left slot image is showing, starting at the corner of President and Hoyt. As you can see, the corner building has a 2-story addition, and there's a variety of different scale, single-story additions and another 2-story. The image on the right, working from 340 President to 319, again, showing a variety of scale and additions and decks. Again, the top right continuing along, and then the top left continues along, and the top right gets towards the end of the row of the townhouses where the project is located. And there is a shift in scale. As you can see, the neighbor to the left, they have an additional story, and they also have a 2-story deck. And then the addition to the right at 303 President is an additional story, and actually it extends beyond the line of our facade. This is the block plan, again, more diagrammatically showing all the different additions. Project highlighted in black with the dark blue showing the proposed addition. The light blue showing the existing additions. Again, there's a variety of scales, 2-story, single-story, partial width. And then the green is showing existing decks and stairs. This is a panoramic of the rear facades to help illustrate, more information about the existing buildings. Starting from the left, 307 to 317, there's a variety of multiple fire escapes, decks, and additions along the rear facade that kind of filter and disrupt the pattern of these bay windows. And again, as the scale steps up towards the end of this row, neighbor to the left, again with the addition and the 2-story deck, and then the neighbor to the right, this also has a roof, a story higher on the roof and extending past the building's rear facade. This is the rear elevation of the existing. Again, there's a sunroom that's going to be removed. The existing fire escape is getting removed. Again, the parlor level and the garden, the rear wall is getting opened up for the proposed addition. On the second floor, the windows are being slightly enlarged to create doors that'll step out onto that deck. And then the third floor windows, the masonry openings are remaining intact, replacing the window within the existing opening. This is the proposed rear elevation. So the two-story addition is not gonna exceed the height of the adjacent bay windows. The main living space is on the parlor level. So we have larger windows to allow more light to come in and a door with steps out to the rear yard. The garden level is the rental unit, has bifold doors that step out to the garden. On the second floor, we are enlarging two of the windows to create doors that step out to the deck. The second and third floor, we want to maintain the existing brick finish and restoring as needed. Even though we're enlarging these doors, we're still going to, use the same detailing, the blue stone head and sill. And then on the third floor, again, not touching the masonry openings, replacing the windows within the existing opening, restoring the blue stone head and sill as needed. And then the brick cornice is remaining and just being restored as required. Again, to the right, there's some images showing just a material palette. We have the existing brick that's being restored. And then the new addition is using a biolime plaster stucco, again, creating that contrast between the original, the old, and then the new. And then the installation detail, the addition is going to be CMU walls with a 3-part stucco. The zoning diagram, this is the existing site. Oh, sorry. This is the existing site section and plan. Again, just showing the sunroom and the fire escape that's being removed, and then the bay window that's being removed for the proposed addition. And then this is the proposed diagrams section and plan, showing the 9-foot extension at the rear. On the second floor, these are the windows being enlarged to create the doors that step out into the roof deck. We're proposing a glass railing, again, to minimize that visual height and mass of the extension, and the heights not to exceed the height of the adjacent bay windows. We're within the 30-foot required rear yard and well under the DOB required FAR 2.0. So we're complying with all of the zoning and DOB restrictions. And then just more detailed photos closer in of the rear facade. Again, this is the sunroom that's being removed, the fire escape, and the bay window in that rear portion being removed for the addition. And again, to the neighbor to the left, you see that they have a 2-story deck and the additional story above. Again, that shift in scale as we get to the end of these line of townhouses. Just some more photos of inside the sunroom. This is all getting removed. And then a photo from outside the sunroom looking up the rear facade to give a little more detail. And then views from the roof, give a nice aerial view from above. Again, looking towards 303 President Street. The larger building extends past the rear facade. And then the view to the right gives a good aerial view of the variety of decks and fire escapes and extensions that have collected along these rear facades. So that's the first part of the presentation. The second is the front areaway. The top 3 images show the view standing on top of the stoop, looking down as you progress towards the garden level entrance. The work we're proposing is to step down this front areaway. And the reason for that is the existing hatch is very small and the stairs inside are steep and difficult to maneuver. So by stepping down this front patio, it allows for a larger hatch and a more functional stair for access to the cellar. Since the garden level is going to be a rental unit, this allows the owners to access the cellar more easily from the front area. Then again, the image on the right shows the existing facade, and this helps illustrate what I spoke of before about the restoration of the facade. And as you can see in the neighbor to the right, they did a great job of restoring the original detail. So we're definitely going through that effort to bring back that richness of the existing profile and historic detailing for this building and just to enhance the street view altogether. And then these are some views of the neighbor to the right, which is pretty much the template of what we're proposing. So the bluestone pavers with steps down to a lower bluestone patio. Again, that working with all of the restored details adds a nice richness to this front area. And then the larger hatch for the cellar access with a more functional staircase. And the image in the middle, just an aerial view, giving a nice overview of the situation that we're proposing. And then the railing detail just to help highlight the level of restoration work that will be done as well in the front. And then the final is this little accessory structure in the rear. As you can see from the proposed zoning diagram plans, we're having a bunch of terraced planters. So this little accessory structure is gonna be a garden shed for gardening supplies, tools, and little work area to help work with the gardening spaces in the rear. We're below the maximum 8-foot height for the zoning. So we're definitely in compliance with all that. The material is going to be an Ipe cladding, same as the fence, which will be a natural finish that will weather to a nice silvery gray. And that's the presentation.
Nicholas, do you have any drawings, actual drawings of the entrance to your project? You just seem to be referencing neighbors' projects.
Yeah. The zoning plans show, let me see. So this is the existing. Right now it's just a concrete patio that comes and steps down. I'm sorry, the hatch isn't shown here, but yeah, there's that small hatch shown here. And then the proposed showing the bluestone patio, the steps down to the lower portion, linear drain. And sorry, this is a zoning, so I'm not sure why the hatch didn't show up, but yeah, so this is the proposed versus the existing.
Okay. I gotta think about this for a second, but I'll open this up to questions. Jerry? I think you're muted, Jerry, if you're talking.
Sorry about that. Can we go to the front facade restoration, please?
Yes. Well, again, the restoration work, I'm highlighting that because it's something that we're doing to enhance the project, but it really isn't open for discussion, I guess, but we can talk about the area is really the focus that Landmarks wants us to review. The front facade restoration is going to be reviewed on a staff level at Landmarks, but I can answer questions in any way.
I'm curious because you referred to the neighbor next door who did I guess on the screen, it's on the right side.
Correct, yep.
Restored. And I noticed the cornice on your building is in desperate need of also restoration.
Yes.
Is that part of the program?
Correct. Yeah, the cornice, the window profiles, the base, all the stucco, brownstone stucco works all being redone. The railings for the stoop and all that is part of the project, yes.
And as far as the back is concerned, I noticed that in the pictures you've shown in the back, most of the buildings still retain their bays. One next door has a deck built on top of it.
Correct.
A deck on the second story, not a 2-story deck. Things like that, but they've retained the basic structure of the bay. What's the reason for destroying the bay and the symmetry of the other that matches the other buildings?
Well, our argument for that is that since we are at the end of this line and there's already a transition scale for the adjacent buildings, that we could, I mean, realistically, if we could make an extension by preserving the bay, we would, but the parlor level is the main living space and the lower level is the rental space. So really and since this is such a narrow building, that additional space is really needed on the parlor level. And to try to do an addition and maintain the bay didn't seem possible.
Okay, and I realize you're getting rid of the fire escape, and then on top of the addition, you're putting in a glass railing. Is that
That's
correct?
correct. Yes.
Whereas normally we see metal railings, so I'd like to understand more of that logic.
The glass railing again is like, since we are, changing, even though the pattern of the bays is not clearly visible, as I tried to illustrate in the drawings previous, but the goal for the glass railing again is to keep the massing of this addition minimized, and we're trying to keep in line, the height of the addition is keeping in line with the bay windows. So at least we're holding to that datum of the bay windows, but not adding more stuff that will visually make it feel taller. Even though it's not even visible by the neighbor, like the top cornice of the bay, we're still trying to like harmonize with what's there. And again, that's why we didn't try to make the windows on the second floor big and modern windows. Like we were trying to keep, at least the dialogue of the existing situation with the punched masonry openings and the bluestone head and sill, and then just creating that contrast between the old original and then the new.
One last item I have on the back where we're looking at the definition from the garden level apartment to the parlor floor. The definition or the separation, the actual visual separation between those two floors does not seem very great. The windows are approximately the same width on the parlor floor and the ground floor apartment. So it seems like it's one large room. Is there any way to make this separation in here between the parlor floor and the garden apartment visually seem a little larger?
Yeah, so you're saying like not have it read as one big window, but more two punched openings. I mean, we could look into that. Like if we extended the cement stucco between and increased the space between them, so it reads more as two punched openings versus one.
Okay, thank you.
Joanna?
Hey, love what you're doing in front. Wondering if, because you're already going to be changing the level, you're making it bi-level in the entry area, if you might consider doing something to make it ADA accessible. Since it's a big rejiggering anyway, don't know about what the current tenant situation is, and I know it's not required, but just something to keep in mind. And I also have a concern about losing that bay in the back, because there really is a rhythm, and it's like a slippery slope. Like once you guys get rid of your bay, then the next house over will say, well, there's not a bay on this side, so we can, that the logic there is kind of too slippery for me. And I'm also feeling like maybe there's if it is an aero property, they need more interior, if they've considered making it a single family and losing the rental space. I mean, I feel like there's some options there, but maybe you can fill me in on what the situation is.
I mean,
hold on though. But are you asking about whether it's single family or two family, Joanna?
Yeah, I understand it's two family right now.
Correct.
But if it's being purchased, can they rezone it for one family and get the living space they need without losing the bay?
Well, that's not really part of our purview, the land use issues.
I'm worried about the bay.
All right, well, that's the
here.
question should be about the bay then.
It is.
Okay.
Why do you have to lose the bay is my question.
Okay.
The answer is, again, with the narrow, width of this building for that parlor level, really the parlors being the main living spaces, we need to get some more space back in the rear. And there really isn't a way we could do that without losing the bay.
Am I allowed to say, or losing the rental? I don't know, David.
Well, I just don't think that's, no, you've made your point on the bay, and I understand that, but I don't think we can tell somebody not to rent an apartment. I just don't think that's within our purview.
No, well, I'm saying their argument is based on their need for more square footage. So I thought I would mention that there is more square footage available in the property that they purchased in a historic district, knowing that it's a historic district, and that part of that is that that bay is essential to that row.
I agree with the last sentence.
Yeah, I mean,
That's,
that wasn't part of
Nicholas, you don't have to, I think the question's been asked and answered. I just don't think we can tell someone to buy, yeah, maybe they need the rental income. I don't know, but I just don't think we should go down that path. Joanna, do you have any other questions?
No, but I do think it's germane. I just want to get that in there, that when people purchase a property in a historic district, they should keep in mind how much square footage they need while maintaining the historic integrity of the building.
Okay, noted. Bob? Bob, you're muted.
I unmuted, but you got it all back again. I agree with the idea of keeping the bay. How far out are you bringing out that second floor?
the addition is 9 feet.
Couldn't that be made into a bay? In other words, I wouldn't have a problem, I don't think, if it was visually, if you still built the bay out of that, and you wouldn't lose that much square footage if you just brought the bay out.
So the addition is actually replicating the bay profile?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be discussion. That's discussion in terms of whether it's on the motion or not. Can I see the front again, please?
What did you want to see?
The front that shows the entire front, not the building, but the areaway.
Oh, the areaway?
Yeah.
This image?
No, the new one.
Oh.
It looked like, the hatch is a lighter color. And I know the thing now for a lot of buildings are, you start making the metal in stainless steel or something else that doesn't rust, which is nice for the owner, but for this area wouldn't look good. So what is this metal?
I believe that's a stainless, like a diamond plate.
Yeah, that's what everybody is doing in the other areas, but certainly not in a historic district. I don't think a stainless steel plate, no matter whether it's diamond or whatever, the stainless steel does, especially with all the other metals here or the black, that should stay black.
I mean, to counter that, I'd say that if you look at
there's
this
no
image,
need to, you don't have to counter. This is our opinions. You gave your opinion by showing the picture.
Okay.
So,
it's
but
not a discussion.
I'm a little confused here, Nicholas. I have a question is this a rendering or is this your neighbor's?
No, this is the neighbor. We want to replicate essentially what they did with the restoration of the facade and the stepping down.
Oh, this isn't yours.
Yeah.
No, this is 305A President Street.
Where is your drawing?
No, I'm using it as a reference because this is better than an actual drawing because it's actually there. It's the neighbor.
Okay, well, I would like to see yours. Maybe they allowed that, but I wouldn't allow it on a new build on. Building.
I'm thinking about this. Let's just come back to the front entry and the structure in the back in a moment, because that's actually not part of the notice. So, Bob, do you have any other questions?
No, but I think we should make a comment on that if it will.
I will. I'm just getting it together in my head.
Okay.
Anything else? Bob, you're good?
No, I'm suggesting that the design of the bay be kept and just brought out if that's a possibility.
Okay, thank you. Glenn?
Thanks. If you could go back to the rendering, not the rendering, the diagram of the back of the house. Thank you. So I share Joanna's concern about losing the bay. Understand that it is broken up by those large decks, which I'm guessing were not approved by landmarks, but there they are. I also think Bob's idea was good to try to put an extension on that sort of at least mimics the bay. And if that doesn't work, you could probably try to make it look more like a bay by losing one of the 4 windows and try to have the fenestration on each of those floors match the neighboring building. So if you had 3 perhaps smaller windows or doors and broke them up, as Jerry was saying, it wouldn't seem so out of place.
Yeah,
So that's just I'm throwing out an idea. You don't need to respond to it. So you've had a couple of comments on the bay and suggestions. What I find absolutely unacceptable, though, is the glass railing. That has to be an iron railing painted black to match everything else in the back of the house.
Okay.
Thank you, Glenn. Bob, is your hand up just because it's still
Oh,
up?
I'm sorry. Nope. I didn't lower it.
All right. So, Nicholas, I just want to ask you a couple questions. When you posted, I know I got a leaflet and I saw them up and down the street. The notice, was it the notice that said it's a review for certificate of appropriateness for a 2-story extension?
Yeah, so with landmarks, originally it was just going to be the extension, but then they wanted me to add the areaway in that accessory structure. That was like the week before the community board.
So it was a week ago.
Yeah, and that was, I told Ty, we added it to the agenda.
So I am going to say this committee is not going to vote on the entrance or the structure in the back. You haven't really presented much. Saying something's going to look like the neighbors is not a presentation. You had a week to work on it. And the public notice and the notice to the neighbors says that you were only you were going to present the rear yard extension. If anybody from the committee disagrees with me on that, and Jerry, you maybe once at your hands up, I'm open to talking about it, but that's sort of my view.
I don't disagree. My hand was up to actually make a motion to table this because presenting a neighbor's areaway without any drawings showing even the location of that front hatch, let alone the size and the material, is misleading or at worst misleading, and at its best just absent-mindedness. And I can't see how we can vote on a piece of it and not vote on another piece. So I'm actually agreeing with you, David. And I'd like to see this tabled for a month, at least.
I agree too. That was a good catch, David.
Anybody else have any thoughts on this? I was okay with voting on the rear yard extension only. But
Discussion on the motion to table, or do you have to just call it?
I mean, people, we can call the question, but does anybody, Joanna, you have your hand up?
Just that I would really like to see a rendering of the accessory building before voting on it.
Agreed.
Technically, it doesn't require, it doesn't allow for a motion. I mean, for a discussion, motion to table, but let's forget that and let's see what everybody says.
Yeah. Well, I had a suggestion too, so I was going to wait till after the motion.
So Glenn, is your hand up again, or is it still?
Yep. Yes, it is.
Right,
Yeah, I'm fine with tabling this so that the applicant can respond to our concerns about the bay in the back, modify the extension, modify the fenestration. It'd be nice to see how they'll come back with that and then show us the other stuff too.
And I should say David's point was well taken in that the notice for the neighbors did not include the areaway. And that's kind of misleading for the neighbors. And that's not the applicant's fault, I should also say.
Yeah, can I jump in here, Jerry, and just say that the timing on this was tricky. We got very late notice from LPC that they wanted the areaway to be reviewed.
Right.
Yeah, the applicant did post what we asked them to post on the date when we posted I'm not making an argument against tabling. I'm just letting everyone know how the public
No,
notice.
I'm actually agreeing that, and I said, it's not their fault. That it didn't include the full agenda as we're looking at it now. And I think that's unfair to the neighbors.
So Nicholas, do you have a, oh, I'm sorry, Jerry.
No, I'm done.
All right, Nicholas, do you have a hearing scheduled yet?
With landmarks, no, they were waiting to see the outcome of this.
All right, so I think tabling, it's a good idea. You can come back to us next month.
You don't have a hand up.
Okay, Bob.
Yeah, I just want to say, since you've been sitting and listening to all our comments, our tabling really is based on the idea that we don't have a rendering of what the front's going to look like. But I would hope that you took what we said and maybe come back with the new drawing of the backyard as well. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, again, there was never an intent to mislead anyone. And in my mind, the showing of an actual built condition seemed to clearly illustrate our design intent, but I can go back and draw it and give renderings of the front and rear, so it's more clear.
You should always present a design proposal. I mean, having inspirational photos or precedents is fine, but there's anytime we review an application, they always have a design proposal for their specific property.
Right.
And then as Joanna mentioned, we need to see more on that backyard structure. And I think we have to be clear in the public notice that these things will be presented because some of your neighbors may care about that backyard structure or may care about what's in the front. And right now they aren't aware of it. So anyway, Bob, you have another question?
Yeah, I just telling the applicant that we need more stuff on the back. I don't think that is fair. If our motion is to table because we don't have enough information for the front, the comments we made about the back doesn't require him to redo it. I think if he was smart, though, he would redo it if he wants to get a positive answer from us.
Bob, I'm talking about the structure all the way in the back. Not the extension.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. So does anybody object to tabling this? Put your hand up if you object to it. I saw someone's hand up. Mark? Okay, anybody else? Okay, so that's a decision. I think who did Daniel sign off and Allison signed off? Yes, it seems to be that.
That's right, both of them.
Okay, so we've agreed to table. Thank you, Nicholas. We look forward to hopefully seeing you next month.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe that, I see Tim Riley. Do you want to make a comment? I see you're in the chat. You want to comment? All right. Ty, I think.
Tim, I just promoted you to the panel and you should be able to unmute yourself once you're over. I see another hand over there. I just want everyone on President Street who's interested in this to know that we're going to rehear this next month. So you may want to hold off on your comments.
No, sure. Can you hear me?
We hear you.
Oh, great. Thanks. I'll be very brief. I own 305A, which was the subject of some of the conversations earlier. So I mean, in front, I like what they've done quite a bit. I think it's worked very well for me. The stainless steel can't be seen unless you come and join me for a drink on my stoop, which you're more than welcome to, but it's not something that's visible from the street. So I think the front side makes a lot of sense for me. I did my renovations 8-9 years ago. I got a absolute no way from Landmarks on touching the rear bay window, which I think is ultimately the right call with 303's condition not being understood, but the rest of the block has it. So that's it. What I wanted to say is what I always thought was the obvious move for 305, given the square footage concerns, was just to go up a level, because 303 and 305A had that fifth story. And if you can create a consistent mansard roof condition across those properties, I think it is very beneficial for the street. It creates the square footage that's necessary for the current owners of 305. There are ways to handle being overbuilt by FAR if you don't fully build out the 5th floor or whatever else. So, you know, I think that makes a lot of sense. So I think that's all I wanted to add.
Yeah, I would just respond to that, Tim. 303 does not have a mansard roof.
Well, it did when it was built. It does not now.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
I
So
mean, by the way, I'll be over in front in 5 minutes for that drink. I live just down the street from you, so.
I'm out of town right now, unfortunately, but I hope we can do that sometime soon. I'll be back tomorrow.
All right, thank you. I think I saw a couple other.
But the only thing I say, if I'm still on, I'm sorry, it's just to the architect. You know, I've been in contact with the owners, and if there's any time you want to stop by and say hello, or I'm around and very able and willing to talk, and I want to be supportive of this. I just want to be done in a way that works for everybody.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Joanna, did you want to bring up something?
Yeah, I just wanted to call to the committee's attention of the fact that there's a lot of new construction happening in Gowanus already. And a lot of it is not compliant in terms of keeping us safe while it's happening. And it was bound to go down this way. And in fact, it is going down this way. So the casket company, for example, on Union and 3rd, has erected some kind of strange construction shed that takes up almost the entire sidewalk, with no other alternative for pedestrians, definitely not ADA accessible. New construction on President between 3rd and 4th does have pedestrian access set up in the roadway, but it's also non-compliant. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of this. And I just thought we might want to get out ahead of it and have CB6 write a friendly letter to planning, DOT, buildings, and just say, please be sure to go and visit these sites on a regular basis, make sure that they're doing everything on the up and up, so that we don't have any accidents in the street.
Well, so I'll even do you one better than that. We're supposed to, and Ariel, you wrote an email the other day. We're supposed to have a task force, and as I understand it, it's supposed to be coming out of our community board. But I'm not sure where that's at right now. It was not structured the way that those of us who worked on it envisioned, unfortunately. We're hoping to have a sit down. I forget her name, but the new council member, about what she can do, because I think we're supposed to run it, but it's sort of via their office. Is that what it is, Ariel?
David, I think that there's two different committees. One is the task force for the Gowanus oversight, which deals with the points of agreement. That's different.
Right.
The community board is supposed to be the seat for the construction committees, which is what we do. We did that with Litch when they built, and this district, that was what I was referring to Mike, is that this is a committee that it was in the final, it was in the notice from Brad Lander's office, from Julia Ehrman, that the community board 6 would be to have the construction committee seated there. And the point of that, Joanna, is what we've done in the past with one-off construction sites, is exactly for that sort of thing. And this is supposed to be something that would a place where the construction issues would come to us, but we haven't formed that yet, as far as I know.
Yeah, and it sort of rests with Peter and I think, and maybe Mike, but I've offered to run it. I've offered to run the oversight.
The oversight committee is a different thing. That's a different thing.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the other committee you're mentioning. I don't.
The community board does that for large construction. There's often a committee where at times it's just been the district manager and the chair, and I think other people have been on those kind of committees. I have not. That interact with the developer and the contractors and have regular meetings with them.
I think, but I'll just say, I think Mike thought you were referring to the oversight committee. when
No,
you
I
were-
was clear.
I know you think you were clear. I think he thinks it's the other committee.
The other
I
committee is not-
I didn't, I thought you were talking about the oversight committee.
No, the other committee is not in, it's it's going elsewhere. It's, we didn't step up to the plate on that. We're not, it's not, we can be representative, we'll be representatives. We're not running it.
I don't see us sitting down with all the developers individually, but I just think we need to, let the agencies who are responsible know that things are already going astray, that the developers have hit the ground running and they're doing whatever the heck they want to. And that can't be the case. We just have to exert our voice somehow. I'm doing lots of personal 311 complaints, but I think as a board, we should get ahead of it.
We should, absolutely.
Alec?
Yeah, I'm much of what I was going to say has been said, but I just want to thank Joanna. I saw your tweets, Joanna, and it's concerning. And this is why we did this is why we were pretty clear about the task force. And we really do need movement on this. And it's understandable that there's been a change in council leadership. And so there's, people are looking at this idea fresh, but I hope we can impress on them. I know that we've asked, Mike and Peter to impress on them that we need this to happen. Because we can't just, the letter you suggested, Joanne, is a great idea, but we had a better idea and we got it in the agreement that there was going to be oversight, continual oversight on this for precisely these problems. So, sorry, I don't mean to sound worked up. I just agree, and hopefully that will be convened shortly.
Jerry?
I agree with everything that's been said, but we don't have the task force yet, or whatever its official name is. So why don't we ask that the district office file a number of complaints with DOT and DOB in the interim? Because it's going to take at least a month before the task force is functioning, maybe even longer. And since I just drove by Union Street earlier, right before, actually at about an hour or so before the meeting, on Union and also on Third, I know exactly what Joanna's talking about. And I was trying to figure out what the hell's going on. It's an incomplete plywood wall. Actually, it's 2 levels. There's one closer into the building and one that they're building and one at the curb line. But still no room at the moment for pedestrians anywhere on the sidewalk on Union Street or on Third Avenue. So why don't we ask, and since Ty is on, yes, Ty's here. Maybe that in the interim, we ask the board office to call 311 or to call DOT and DOB directly and find out what's going on and have their inspectors go out and look at it. The task force is a great idea, but I don't think we should wait.
Ty, can you take that back?
I'm always happy to ask for enforcement.
Okay. Ariel?
Yeah, hi. Jerry, haven't you been on some of these construction advisory groups? They're CAGs, they're specific, and we do this. And I know that there's going to be a ton coming up, but there was the intent that, and as I said, this is a different committee than the Gowanus rezoning oversight task force, because that has a much larger, it's a goal because there's a lot of other things involved. This is really specific to exactly the kind of things that Joanna's talking about. And so I just think, I think maybe you could shed some light on how it's been done in the past, and if it is generated from the district office, typically, or how does it usually happen?
I mean, Ariel, can I just say, I don't know exactly what the germ of the lich thing was. I know they were looking at the LMCC model, and I'm guessing that Brad Lander was spearheading the initial convening of that task force, but I was not involved in the nitty gritty. This is the first I'm hearing of the idea that separate and apart from the task force, there would be a community board construction committee. And so, I could have been out of the loop on all that, but I'm genuinely surprised to hear all this. And it does seem like a duplication of what I thought the task force was going to do. That doesn't mean it's a bad idea. That's my reaction upon hearing this for what I thought is the first time.
It may be, and it may be, what, the only reason I'm pushing this here is because we don't have any communication anymore, really. It's very difficult to communicate. So I'm pushing this a little while we have ties here and we have a few other people here, because this has been worrisome to me because it's end of January and there has been so little motion. I understand that the council people are very, very busy, and there may be, but there are things that I think we as the community board can be doing to help start pushing this along. And so that's why I'm asking, if right now we don't have I was not aware of the kinds of things, I walk the streets I walk on all the time through Gowanus. I haven't seen that yet, except for on the canal. But so I do think it is important. I will forward you the document that I saw this in. I wasn't 100% aware that was going to happen either, but it was in a document, so I thought other people knew that. And I have heard this from a few other places. GNC, Gowanus Neighborhood Coalition for Justice, also mentioned that CD6 would, as they have in the past, would be the place for these kind of construction issues as we follow through, separate from all the points of agreement, which have to do with $200 million going, like all the other things that are points of agreement is a little bit different than, the issues that Joanna was talking about, which is, it might be combined, maybe it becomes part of it. But I do think that it's time for us to be doing something. If our, if the district office hasn't yet been able to make those moves, then we should be helping them, or in some way or other. I'm happy to set up a meeting and start figuring out what it is that we need to be doing as a community board to field those kind of, or to make sure that if Joanna has these issues and she's right here, there must be a lot of other people that are also finding things that we don't know about. And it means getting in touch, starting to reach out to and having contact with the people who are doing that work. So,
I think we all agree something has to happen. That whatever form it is, it does have to happen. And I share the frustration that nothing's happened yet. But I think we have to start pressuring Mike and Peter to do something. Bob?
I just had a question. I don't remember, and I've been on here long enough, though also my memory is gone most of the time, so that doesn't always answer it. But I don't remember this coming up as a discussion on previous projects on this committee. But do we hear about this, especially when I was on exec, when I was chair of landmarks, that would come up? But I don't know if that actually even belongs in this committee. I mean, it became, those kind of things were separate things that were under the auspices, I think, directly from the chair and the district manager, sort of. I don't think it was out of the purview of the landmarks land use committee, but I definitely think it should be done. I'm not trying to talk you out of doing it.
I think right,
I guess can I first of all,
I was going to say, Jerry, you probably know this better than anyone else.
Gee whiz. I think that there were individual projects where we had individual task forces, whatever you want to call them. They operated under the auspices of the community board. They were a separate committee. They had representatives from the developer, the builders, the contractors, our local elected officials, and depending neighborhood groups, and obviously the community board. But it was a separate, it was not part of the established community board committee structure. I'm not sure exactly, and Alec is probably on this better than I am, what the new committee that was built into the rezoning, what the parameters are. And that may be the place it has to go. But right now, there is no new committee. There is no committee set up for either a task force or under the new zoning that was passed, approved, and signed on. So I think right now, our position should be that we contact the agencies and ask for enforcement right now, instead of waiting. And also at the same time, contact our new council person from the 39th and see what we can do to get this an interpretation of what we have to do and what they have to do to get this committee established and start working. And if it's the committee that does this, fine. If it's a separate task force, which seems kind of ridiculous because then we need one for every construction project. I think one should be enough, but let's move on it. That's all I'm saying. Let's move, and Ty is going to take, I suspect Ty is going to be taking all this back to Mike and Peter tomorrow morning. And let's see where we go from there. But in the meantime, we should be bitching to DOT, DOB, and if there are other agencies involved, to them also. And I have to go, so that's my goodbye soliloquy.
Thank you.
Goodbye,
Good night, everybody.
See you, member.
All right, are we good? I think that was, I'm
We're
glad we
good.
talked about that. I think it's important that we share that, and we'll do what we can to.
Thanks for bringing that up, Joanna.
All right.
Very good. Good night,
Thank you,
folks.
Ann.
All right,
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. See you next month.
take care.